Hello and welcome to Lesson 10, Academic Honesty. This is MLA Part 2. In this lesson, we'll be talking about citing sources, both in-text citations and the Works Cited page. Citing sources. You have to attribute your sources anytime you're using someone else's information. So you need to clearly mark quotes, in other words, use correct punctuation with the quotation marks, and then use paraphrases and summaries correctly in text citations and the Works Cited page. There are three ways to use information from a source. You can summarize it, you can paraphrase it, or you can quote it. So when you're summarizing, you're using the whole source. There it is, a summation of the whole work. It's almost like I made these slides myself. Okay, so when you are summarizing, you want to read to find the thesis and then outline the structure. In other words, look for the topic sentences and the major points of support. You're going to use that outline as a skeleton to write your summary. All right, when you are paraphrasing, it's a good idea to do side-by-side paraphrasing. In other words, you want to look at the source and you want to put it into your own words. So to do that, read for understanding, stay true to the author's intent, put it into your own words, and don't patch write. In other words, don't just use synonyms to replace the words that the author used. You want to actually think about what the author said and then put it into your own words. When you are quoting, it is critical that you use the exact words the author did. So again, you're going to read to find your quote, copy it exactly word for word. You want to use this for expert opinions without making any kind of inference in the meaning. In other words, you're saying exactly what the speaker said. So when you are summarizing, you want to cite the whole source. But with paraphrasing and quoting, you want to cite the exact location. In other words, what page did that come from? So let's look at some. Okay, we're not going to look at that yet. First, we're going to talk about the importance of citing all the material that you use. This is how you avoid being accused of plagiarizing anything. If you cite the source, it cannot be plagiarized. But it is critical when you are citing the source that you have an in-text citation and an entry on the Works Cited page. It's like shoes. If you have a left shoe, which is the in-text citation, you have to have the right shoe, which is the entry on the Works Cited page. To be honest, this is one of the most common mistakes that I see. There's either an in-text citation, but no corresponding entry on the Works Cited page, or vice versa. There's something on the Works Cited page, and there's no in-text citation to go with it. You have to have both of those. So, if you are writing something down right now, if you're taking these notes, write down that if you have an in-text citation, you have to have an entry on the Works Cited page. So let's look at different types of in-text citations. The whole purpose of the in-text citation is to direct your reader to the entry on the Works Cited page so they can get more information from the source. It should be unobtrusive and it's usually the author's last name, maybe with a page number, and it's usually enclosed in parentheses. So here are some examples of in-text citations done two different ways. And I think, okay. Humans have been described by Kenneth Burke as symbol-using animals. So this quote comes from Kenneth Burke. Because Kenneth Burke's name is in the sentence, the attribution at the end where you see the page number that's circled there in blue, it does not have to say Burke 3 because we already said Kenneth Burke's name in the sentence. The other way that you could do that is humans have been described as symbol-using animals. The second example here, this one we didn't use Kenneth Burke's name in the sentence, so the in-text citation says Burke 3 in parentheses. There we go. So note that with an in-text citation, the last word of the quote is followed by the closing quotation marks. There's a space, and then you have the parentheses with the number 3, which is the page number, followed by a period. This other one is still animals, closing quotation mark, space, and then we've got the author's last name and the number 3 for the page number, surrounded by brackets and the period. You will notice there's no period inside the closing quotation marks after the word animals. It goes after the closing parentheses. So these two in-text citations direct the reader to this entry on the Works Cited page, Burke Kenneth. So if I, as the reader, wanted to know more about what Burke had to say about these symbol-using animals, I know I could look at Language as Symbolic Action, Essays on Life, Literature, and Method. All right, here is a different way to look at in-text citations, somewhat different. Okay, so Wordsworth stated that Romantic poetry was marked by a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Just like the Kenneth Burke quote, we've got Wordsworth's name in the sentence, and so we are following that with the page number that tells us where to find this quote. Another way we could have done that is to say Romantic poetry is characterized by, and then we've got the quote, followed by the in-text citation. Now in this sentence, it doesn't say who the speaker is, who we got this information from. So we need to put Wordsworth in the in-text citation. Our third example here, Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process. That is a paraphrase of spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. So we've got the page number in the parentheses. The attribution of the speaker, Wordsworth, is in the sentence. So all three of these, you would not use them all in the same paragraph, right? But these all point to the entry on the Works Cited page, which you see on the bottom of the screen. So just to clarify, Wordsworth, William, Lyrical Ballads, Oxford UP, 1967, that would not appear on the essay page. That would be at the end of the essay in the Works Cited page. Going the wrong direction. All right. Sometimes we don't know who the author is. We only know the title of the article. Here is an example. We've got a quote, and then our in-text citation says impact of global warming, and we know it comes from page 6. This is what the entry on the Works Cited page would look like. We abbreviated the impact of global warming in North America in our in-text citation to say impact of global warming. On the entry on the Works Cited page, we can see that this article is included in a larger publication called Global Warming Early Signs that was produced in 1999. Sometimes you'll have several authors. Here are a couple of different ways to look at those. We've got a paraphrase, Smith et al. Argues. Our second example here is the quote, the author state. Then we've got the quote, followed by Smith et al. 76 in parentheses. So that's our in-text citation, the Smith et al. We know that it comes from page 76 of the Smith entry on the Works Cited page. So et al. Is an abbreviation of a Latin phrase that I probably can't pronounce that means and others. It's like etc., but instead of and the rest, this means and others. So when you have 3 or more authors, you will always use et al. That keeps you from naming, like 10 authors of a study. If you have only 2 authors, look at our third example down here at the bottom. A 2016 study suggests that stricter gun control, yada, yada. Our authors here are Strong and Ellis, 23. You'll notice that we do not use the ampersand as an abbreviation here. We actually write out the word and. We also have the page number 23. Sometimes you will be using information from a source. You want to use the quote that the author of the source used, but the author of the source actually interviewed the speaker. Because you did not interview the speaker, you have to acknowledge that this quote is coming from another writer. So, for example, Ravitch argues that high schools are pressured to act as social service centers, and they don't do that well. So Ravitch is our speaker here. We didn't interview him, Weissman did. So on the Works Cited page, we will have an entry that says Weissman and tells where this quote came from. So to show that this came from Weissman, instead of saying Weissman 259, we're going to use the abbreviation QTD for quoted, QTD period in Weissman 259. That's in parentheses followed by the period. That was the wrong direction. There we go. So now let's look at the Works Cited page. Hopefully you're solid on what the in-text citation is. Let's look at the Works Cited page, because it's a whole thing. The Works Cited page is a whole thing. If there is an in-text citation, there has to be a corresponding entry on the Works Cited page. Hopefully you've already taken note of that. As I already pointed out, that's what most people mess up. And that will cost you points if you do that. The entries on the Works Cited page are always in alphabetical order. They are always have a hanging indent. They are always double spaced. And if you are using an electronic source, it requires a date of access. Dates of access are always written day, month, year. So, for example, accessed 3 May 2023. Here is an example Works Cited page from a paper I wrote when I was in grad school in 2019. You can tell because it's got my last name there in the upper right corner. This is what a hanging indent is. It is where the first line is flush with the left margin. All of the secondary lines are indented a ½ inch. It's like the opposite of a paragraph. So these are opposite paragraphs. I think my point here with this orange arrow is that these are in alphabetical order: Ballad, BB, and Bob. Let's see what we have next. Yes. There's our date of access, 26 July 2019. When you complete an entry, click on the link to make sure that the URL works. That makes it easier for your reader to follow up on your sources. And that's the URL. Okay, so the entry of a Works Cited page is kind of complicated, and this is more of those incredibly boring details that are critical. So you might want to take a break right now and come back with a fresh mind so we can talk about how you do the entries on the Works Cited page. Okay, are you back? Are you ready? This list, 1 through 9, is all the information that can be included in an entry on the Works Cited page. They have to go in this order. They also have to be followed by this punctuation. These are the core elements. They are in the correct order here. The core elements are listed in the order they appear. Each element is followed by the punctuation mark shown here. For online sources, you want to include the author and or editor names if those are available. These always go last name first. The article name will appear in quotation marks. The title of the website or the book or the project will be in italics. This is followed by any version numbers available, such as editions, revisions, posting dates, volumes, or issue numbers. The publisher information, such as the name and the publishing date. The page numbers, if it's a single P, that's one page. PP is a range of pages. Paragraph numbers are either PAR period or PARS, depending on whether you've got one or multiple. DOI if it's available, otherwise the URL without the HTTPS : // or you can use a permalink. This is followed by the date you access the material. Oh, look at this note. This can save your bacon, especially when dealing with pages that change frequently or do not have a visible copyright date. In other words, if in your paper you say, you use a quote, and then a reader a year later goes back to look for that quote and it's not there, as long as you've got the date accessed in your Works Cited page, that means that it's fine if it's not there today, because when you looked at it a year ago, it was there. So that's why we always have a date of access for online sources. So in general, this is what each of your entries on your Works Cited page will include. most of what we search for, most of the sources that we use are electronic these days. And this is the way that you properly cite an online source. So here's an example. Another one of the little quirks of MLA. We've got two authors, Alonso and Camargo, however you say that name, sorry, person. Didn't mean to massacre your name. The first author is last name, comma, first name. Then we've got a comma, followed by and. The second author is first name, middle initial, period, and a last name followed by a period. I know that's weird. That's one of those things that's unique to MLA. Here we've got the title of the article. You will see that it is enclosed in quotation marks. This is the website title. It is italicized, followed by a comma. Just a note, when I correct or give you feedback on your Works Cited entry, Canvas doesn't let me do italics. So I might have a little side note that says, be sure you italicize the website name. That's why. That's why I'm not italicizing. It won't let me. This is the version number. So we've got volume 21, number 1, and then we've got a publication date 3 February 2006, and the page numbers. Here's our container. The container is the publisher. Wiley Online Library. This is the database that it came from. So this is how you document the database. You will notice that it is also in italics. Here is the DOI, or this could be a URL, either one, and then our access date. We'll talk more about DOIs in just a second. If an element is missing from the source, so like if it does not have a version number, just skip over that and go to the next element. If you can find a publication date, those are usually pretty important. And most of the time, you'll find those with articles. With books, blogs may not have one. Websites, it's kind of iffy. Sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. So don't be surprised or put off if you can't find a date of publication. All right, so online databases have very handy MLA citation machines, which are great. But there are some mistakes that they always make. I don't know why. But it's unusual that they get the citation 100% correct. So a couple of things you need to look for. Make sure that everything that's italicized in the source is italicized when you paste it. For some reason, the copy and paste function sometimes loses the italics. The other mistake that a lot of citation engines make is they don't capitalize titles correctly. So MLA, initial caps, all major words. Titles should not be in all caps ever, nor should only the first word of the title be capitalized. So here's an example. This is how it should appear. We've got last name, comma, first name, period. And then our title, Food Insecurity in America Tied to Prices, comma, Poverty, period. And then we've got our magazine, U.S. News and World Report, in italics. So copied from one MLA citation engine. That came through like this. Food insecurity in America tied to prices poverty, but you'll notice that insecurity America tied prices and poverty here is not capitalized. So you would have to go in and manually change that. The other thing that the citation engines do frequently is put it in all caps. Even though you set it to MLA, it's going to do this APA thing. So make sure that if when you paste it, it comes through as in all caps, that you go back and manually change that. It's a pain, but it will save you points. You always begin the entry with the author's last name followed by a comma and the rest of the name as presented in the work. You end the element with a period, just like this. Baron, comma, Naomi S. period. Here is one with multiple authors, Jacobs, comma, Allen, comma, et, space, AL period. This is followed by the article title. Oops, nope, books and websites would be in italics, such as shown here. There we go. The article title, Pretty Hurts here, or sorry, that's the song title, Pretty Hurts, in quotation marks. Or questions of transport, reading Primo Levi, reading Dante. I have no idea what that means. Okay, title of the container. Future of the book. So this is a collection of essays or short stories. And I know that because it's edited by, so there are multiple authors. Toward meta reading is an essay or an article written by this Patrick Basin. Here we've got an entry, a source, sorry, losing my words, that came from a database. So you put in the regular title, then we've got the historical journal, that's the title of the publication, but this came from a database, ProQuest, here's the DOI, and then our access date. If a source is part of a numbered sequence, such as a multi-volume book or a journal with both a volume and issue numbers, those numbers have to be listed in your citation as shown here. Boring but necessary. The publication date. The weird thing about publication dates, it may be a season like spring. It may be a quarter like QTR3, or it may be a month and a year, or it may just be a year. Location. So in a longer work, like a whole book, you may be using something from a series of pages, like 74 through 94 here. If you've got a URL, it should be a live link. Best case. If it's not, that's all right too. Okay, here we go with URLs or the DOI. DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier, and it's like a permanent location. URLs change. That's why you get the like page 404 not found. DOIs are permanent locations. So in other words, Project Muse is responsible for making sure that this source is always at this DOI. This location will always have this postmodernism and Hong Kong cinema. Date of access. We already talked about why that's important, how it saves your bacon. Okay, so I have bored you enough. 30 minutes of this is more than enough. If you still have questions, you can go to the Purdue OWL. OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. This is their address. When I have questions about MLA formatting, I go to the OWL. I have it bookmarked on my computer. If I am looking at your Works Cited page and I want to know if you've cited correctly, I'm going to go to the OWL and look it up. So, use the same source I use. You can also go to the MLA Style Center, which is at style.mla.org. They want money, though. Purdue does not. So, that's why I use the OWL. Or you can look in your textbook if you have that. Pages 548 to 596 are all about MLA. Okay, so do this week. There's a library tutorial and a couple of kind of little irritating assignments. One of them is like a tutorial that you complete. There's a little test. You have to score at least 80 to pass. If you score at least 80, I put 100 in the gradebook. And on Thursday, don't forget to bring a hard copy of your final version of your image essay to class. Remember that we are not meeting on Tuesday, but we are meeting on Thursday. All right. This was prepared with the OWL's guidance. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Have a great day. I hope you're still awake, and I will see you on Thursday. Bye.